But this one's really interesting. Sir Patrick Vallance, remember him? He was on our screens almost every day. There he was with Chris Whitty and, of course, with the Prime Minister, or indeed with the man that ran health, Matt Hancock, in those days. And he was the government's chief scientific officer. So a guy, had a really important role throughout the pandemic. But what is really interesting is that he and others, in fact, Dame Bingham, the woman responsible for what was seen to be a very successful vaccine rollout, certainly compared to members of the European Union, both of them are now saying maybe we need to rethink drugs. Now, it's funny, isn't it? Because our first item tonight was about Albanian criminal gangs, about cannabis farms. And if you think about it, drugs play a massive role in our lives, whether it's illegal drugs and the crime that goes with them, or whether it's legal drugs and what we take and what gets given to us on prescription. Now, there's been an absolutely huge increase in this country of the number of people being given antidepressants. Something like 6.5 million people are prescribed with antidepressants. And I'm very struck that many of those people that get these prescriptions and repeat prescriptions that go on year after year never actually get any better. It's as if the pharmaceutical industry makes billions giving us drugs that may, in the short term, make us feel slightly better, but don't make us better. So this absolutely revolutionary idea from Sir Patrick Vallance and others that maybe LSD should be given to us on the National Health Service. Now, I know that sounds absolutely crazy and completely and utterly bonkers, but of course, there are many drugs that are illegal, but used medically in the right doses might just have some positive effects. Well, joining me now to discuss this subject is Alex Piot, Director of Research at the Conservative Drug Policy Reform Group. Now, Alex, I'm not going to talk about decriminalisation or otherwise of cannabis or anything else, but what I really am interested in is the potential medical positive effects of LSD or indeed of magic mushrooms. I'm beginning to wonder, did Prince Harry have a point?
Well, perhaps he did. The evidence is really pointing to these drugs being highly effective in difficult to treat mental health conditions such as depression and anxiety. And we can see these drugs starting to be rolled out in other G7 countries, such as Australia, which has rescheduled psilocybin, the active component in magic mushrooms,
yep,
and MDMA, or Canada with their special access program.
Okay, so, we think of LSD, we think of magic mushrooms as people taking this stuff and absolutely, completely losing control of their senses, not knowing what they're doing, potentially not being responsible for their actions. And yet you're saying that there are potential medical applications that could genuinely help people with depression. But is the answer to that not like all the other drugs that are on the market for depression? They might make people feel better for a little bit in the short term, but does it actually deal with the condition?
Well, that's an interesting point. The evidence seems to indicate that with the use of these specific substances, you can really target the root of the problem. And with the help of a therapist and quite intense work, it is possible, it seems, from clinical trials to really have long-term benefits without repeated dosing. Now, in clinical trials, it takes only 2 doses and patients feel better for months afterwards.
Yeah, and the point that Sir Patrick Vallance is making here is that we haven't actually undertaken clinical trials on anything like a big enough scale to draw a conclusion. So what he's really saying is we need to actually do this properly to get a better assessment.
Yes, absolutely. The majority of trials that have been conducted so far have been on very small number of participants. What we need is large-scale trials with long-term follow-ups and more solid science in order to truly establish the efficacy of these medications. But for now, they seem extremely promising.
No, I mean, look, as I say, when I saw Patrick Valence's name attached to this, I thought, wow, this is potentially very, very interesting. One final thought, Alex, on all of this. You know, if we finish up effectively with LSD being given out on the NHS and the argument that it can be enormously helpful, isn't there a danger that a lot more people seek to buy it illegally and use it in ways that could be damaging? Could this not potentially be the legitimization of some of these mind-altering drugs?
Well, I feel as if it would be really important for the NHS to give access to these medications so that they can be used legitimately. Now, there's no evidence of diversion of Schedule II drugs into the black market for now. And the key point in these therapies is the therapeutic process that goes along with the administration of the drug.
OK, Alex, thank you very much indeed for joining us this evening. Well, potentially, folks, very, very interesting to see where that clinical research goes. I remain deeply sceptical. Actually, I remain sceptical of virtually all drugs. I don't take any at all, thank goodness. I'm just convinced that we have a medical profession and a pharmaceutical industry who are busy giving us stuff that doesn't actually really make us better. Hey, maybe I'm completely and utterly wrong. It's just my view. Now,